You're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. Now, the Senate and House of Representatives Special Ad Hoc Committee on the Constitution Review on Wednesday laid their report on the alteration of the 1999 Constitution. The lawmakers are proposing 68 alterations to the 1999 Constitution. The bill recommends a total of 105 seats for women in the National Assembly, including 36 in the Senate and 68 in the House of Representatives. Now, we'll be talking about this, talking about women participation in politics in Nigeria. We have in the studio Faith Nwadashi, the Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy, to give us perspectives on this. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Yes. All right. Now, a lot of discussion really about, gender inclusion in our politics. And when we talk about that, we specifically refer to women participation in our politics. With this bill, and in fact, we saw the First Lady, the wife of the President, storm the National Assembly the day that this report was to be laid before the lawmakers. And it was quite, interesting to see her alongside others, the Finance Minister and the likes, visit the National Assembly with respect to that. What are we, up to? This increase in the number of seats. What's your thought around this one?
First of all, let me congratulate the leadership of the National Assembly for thinking about this and believing in it. It's the first time we're making a very conscious attempt to put women in the mainstream of politics. If you look at our political history from time, there was a time only people who were allowed to vote were people who had an income of about £100. And there were only men who were allowed to vote in Nigeria. But over the time, we have seen that change. Women were eventually allowed to vote. And then eventually, even not too long ago, that women, the northern women, were allowed to vote. Even women at the southern part of Nigeria were voting long before the northern women started voting. So that's our electoral history. And then, so because of that and because of culture, women has always been put in the background. When it comes to leadership, they say because the man is the head, the man should be the one in the leadership position. And then we had a constitution that was completely gender blind, didn't take into consideration women's participation. So for the first time, and I want to also say thank you to the First Lady for championing this. The historians are saying this is the first time you have a First Lady visit the National Assembly on a particular women's issue. And the exciting part for me is just not that they have created additional seats. They have redefined issues around indigenship. They have also defined affirmative action. We have a gender policy in this country forever that we have never implemented. Now you have that come into the Constitution. So you have a better grip. You have a sense of ownership, being part of the Nigerian project, being part of everything that is happening. So some people say, oh, why do you have to give extra seats for women? It's done in other climes.
Exactly. We're going to come to that.
Yes. I was actually going to ask why it is important for women to be involved in the political process.
It's very important because women are also part of the society. Women, from the Nigerian population statistics that we have, women are over 50% of the population. Though the new population statistics we're having just a bit about between 5 to 10%, you have more men than women. But when you have that in a population, you need to make conscious effort to put those people in decision making, because they say it is he or she who wears the shoe that knows where it pinches. If I am not part of that decision making, I will not be able to put issues that concern me on the table. Other people will be taking decisions on my behalf, and they will take it in their own perspective without having gone through that experience. So it's important that women are part of the entire value chain of decision making, because right from planning to putting things together and implementation, so that you get outcomes. If you don't have certain populations on that table, taking those decisions, we keep coming back, going round a circle, and we are not making any progress. And that's why it's really important that women, but come to think about it, if women have to carry the other half of the population in their womb formation for 9 months, they have to be part of the decision making.
Now, you know, there are those who have raised reservations about this, you know, proposal with regards to the Constitution, because some say that, I mean, right at the floor of the chambers, there are those who argue that, I mean, women should maybe choose between the 35% affirmative action and, you know, make a choice between these two, to choose whether to stick with that or to bring in these additional seats to the National Assembly. How would you respond to that argument?
Now, for me, both ways, they're win-win ways, anyhow. Because if you take the additional seats had been calculated to not even be up to 35% affirmative action. It's about 32%, about 30 to 32% if you give those additional seats. Now, what you're doing in giving additional seats is that you're consciously making it possible for women to emerge as candidates. You know that out of over 109 senators that we have just about 8 of them as women. And that's because at political party level, parties don't want to bank on women at primaries. They tell you that women can take forms, you know, free of charge. But the other hidden costs that come with that, a lot of women are not able to do that. But when it now comes to primaries, parties don't end up having women as candidates. So if you give additional seats consciously, every party must ensure that for the senatorial seats where you have 3 candidates, you know, you must have at least one woman who is coming, irrespective of where she's going to come from. So you have senatorial seats, 3, usually that you have a man, but you now have an additional woman. Now, for the 35% affirmative action, this is what is happening. You have for every elective and appointive positions, even at political party level, so that you don't have 15 political party executives and you just have one woman leader. Because it's woman leader. And we have seen in some states where men are even contesting for the position of woman leader. And we had in the past where we even had men as commissioners for women affairs. So if you don't have laws put down in black and white that people must respect, those things will not happen. We have had a gender policy that has been pushing for 35% affirmative action. But because we have not legislated on it, it's not law, it's just a policy. You cannot hold anybody responsible for that. So when you have that, it's more like a win-win. If you get women, get them more seats, what it means that they must go through the electoral process, they must stand for election, they must do all of that. If you get women on 35% affirmative action, for instance, if there's no 35% affirmative action, you can't ask anybody not when they don't appoint women, you can't take them to court, you can't even hold them responsible for that. So the additional seats, different, because that has to do with parliament. Do you know that in some states, at state assemblies, you don't even have women? In some states, you don't even have women. In some other states, just about 1 or 2 women. And we've even seen cases where women emerge as speakers of the House. They are told to step down. They are told to step down or they're impeached. So, but with that kind of provision in our Constitution, and not just in any law or any policy, what it means that people will begin to now put that into their policies. Political parties will have to go to rewrite their constitutions. Most political party constitutions have just one line: we're going to respect gender, even though it's there. But because there's no law to hold them accountable to it, they're not able to do that. That's why it's important we have both. We have the more seats and we have the issues around affirmative action. The more seats ensures that women are part of the ballot, women sit in parliament and are part of decision making. Affirmative action is that when it comes to appointment and setting up executive structures, women are also part of it.
Okay, all right. Now, there's also this argument about, you know, cost of governance and cost of running the National Assembly. At the moment, we have about 360 House of Representatives members, and in the Senate, we have 109. By the time you add 111 to that figure, you are talking about over 550 or thereabouts.
Yes.
Now, is that a concern, you know, for us? You know, when you think about the money that will now be going into, the payment, of allowances and all of that for the lawmakers.
That's just about 5%.
Yes.
Of the increase in what we're going to be paying in running the National Assembly. If you put together the total amount that goes into corruption in this country, it's over 30%. If we're able to plug those loopholes where our monies are taken out, siphoned out of this country, 5% additional cost to running the National Assembly will not be an issue. But you want to look at the benefits that you get out of that. The benefits outweighs the 5% increase. What you now will have is that you have more voices looking at issues that concern vulnerable people in Nigeria, women inclusive, and you are able to address that. So it's like they say your mouth is where your wealth is, or whatever. That I can't really get it exactly now the way they say it. So if you make an investment on people, you will get development out of that. So 5% additional investment. We're looking forward to having a proper development and a National Assembly.
But it's argued that wouldn't it have been better to, rejig the current arrangement where you have three senators, for instance, from each state. Out of the three, you can just easily just say, okay, one of them should be a woman instead of
it will never have passed. I'm telling you, take my word to the bank. It will never have passed. Because which states or all of those sitting senators, members of the House of Reps, some of them are serving 4 terms, 5 terms. Some of them want to serve forever. Which states will be willing to say, out of 3 senators that we have now, I want to take out 1 for a woman to contest that? There was a time we had, for instance, in Anambra State, they had the women at the National Assembly, women there. You understand what I'm saying? But when you now go to a law and make it compulsory to say a particular seat should be reserved for women out of the existing one that you have, it will become so difficult. Now what is happening is, for the senatorial seat, you're adding just 1 additional one. The 3 remains. You understand? The 3 remains, but you have an additional one. It makes it easier for implementation. Moreover, it's just for a period. It's just for a period. By the time we stabilize and we see that we have more women being part of parliament, that law may have to be reviewed, because that's how it's done everywhere. It's just to be able to get more women, especially where you have disadvantaged people. You are creating some kind of, like we have the federal character. You say if there's a disadvantage somewhere, you need to bring more people on board to be able to balance it out. And once it balances out, there will be no need for such a provision anymore.
Okay, now a lot of people actually seem to think that women are the problem of, each other's problems. They don't support each other, they're jealous of each other, and a whole lot of stuff. Now, we've seen the First Lady set the pace. How can we get more women in leadership to be supportive or even motivate other women?
Well, I want to say that we had actually passed that bridge a long time ago, where people say that it is women that are their worst enemies. For Christ's sake, when we had the Zamfara state legislators, they just impeached their deputy governor. It was men against men. So men fight against men as much as women fight against women. But women are more supporters of women, because we have found that once one woman benefits, she makes time out to ensure every other woman. And that's why that slogan is say, educate a woman, educate the nation. Because once one woman gets an information, she's able to take it down there and out there. So that's why it's important to get more women to do that. But what we want to ask is, because we don't have the numbers in leadership, so it becomes difficult for issues around mentorship. Women in leadership are beginning to mentor people. There was a very strong statement that the First Lady made yesterday with the women ministers, the women appointees, women from all over Nigeria were there, because the time has come for that. I saw an interview some years ago, I think early 70s or so, a minister gave an interview, and they asked him, why is it that women are not allowed to? And he says, when it is time for the women, that opportunity will be made. And this is the time, and that's why you have all of that happening.
But where were the women when Sarah Jibril actually contested for presidency?
Exactly. You know, it's a case. You want to ask. She had not only where were the women, but where were the people who were part of her campaign team? Because she went there, she had a campaign team, she had a campaign manager, and unfortunately for her, she went for the primaries and she got herself only 1 vote. When people are assuming that she voted for herself. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it happens everywhere. The fact is that at that point, who were members of our campaign team, were they all women? I assure you, if they were all women at that time, women would always vote for women. Because women, one thing unique about a woman is that when she makes a commitment to you, she goes an extra length to make sure she keeps that commitment. So it is a political party structure. People would have gone to say, oh, this woman is contesting. This is not time for a woman to be president of Nigeria. This is not time for such a political party to have a female flag bearer. But you know, from Sarah Jubril time till now, the narrative has changed. You now have more women coming out. You now have more women supporting women. The Women in Politics group recently just set up a website to give support to women aspirants, women who want to be bold enough to come out and swim that river. So now you see women being conscious. That's why I said we have crossed that bridge where they say women no longer support women. Women are the greatest supporters of women now, and we are ready to have it. Don't be surprised in 2023, we may just get it.
All right, now, you know, there's a lot of issues, you know, around this.
Yeah.
But before we go, I would like for you to talk about, you know, the monetization of our political system. And now we are talking about women inclusion. In terms of raising funds and all of that, how can women do? I mean, what can women do to raise funds? Because that's also a major issue here.
Now, we should begin to use our traditional strategies. In communities, if you want to raise funds, make women part of that committee. They are the ones who will go from house to house, and they are the ones who will first make the contributions even before the men. And once a woman believes in a cause, no matter how poor she is, she will contribute to that cause. So that's the strategy I want us to go back to. Women, we should agree on who is going to be the candidate, a credible candidate, somebody we can vouch for, somebody that can push, you know, for all our reforms and all of that. And then we begin to raise those funds. I'm sure that if you ask every woman, every girl that is 18 years and above and is able to vote, to pay at least 100 naira, that fund will go a long way. And I know there are women who are willing and able to even pay much more than that. If we collectively have a fund, there's a women's trust fund that has already been established, but we can go further and use our traditional strategies, our traditional methodologies of raising funds, and this will go a long way in supporting women. If we have that money there, we're not going to use that money to buy votes, we're not going to use that money to pay political party leaders, because that's something, and that's another kettle of fish. The political parties come out to say, women, you have free forms, you have free that, but you have to pay. You have to settle the chairmanship, the chairman of the party. You have to see all the party leadership from grassroots level to national level. So that doesn't account for the money that you have to pay. So if we have, we are able to contribute that amount of money, I am willing to contribute into such a fund to support any woman that we all collectively agree as Nigerians to say, let us put our money where our mouth is.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program. We'll have to end the discussion at this point because of our time. We appreciate your coming. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. We've been speaking with Faith Nwadishi. She is the Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy, talking about women inclusion in Nigerian politics vis-a-vis the recent proposal to increase the number of seats in the National Assembly by 110 to 111 to allow for women to participate in the process. Well, with that, we've come to the end of the program for today. Join us again tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow for another time on the program.
That's going to be Daybreak Extra.
Yes, Daybreak Extra tomorrow. In case you missed, you can always catch up on our YouTube and also connect with us on all our social media platforms, as you can see there on your screen. Thank you for watching. I am Ayuba Ilya.
And I'm Dasha and Husseina Usman. Have a wonderful weekend.